welcome. I could say welcome in like they do at restaurants, which just makes me crazy. Don't ask me why, just old people's stuff. Let's see, I have a list of things I want to talk about. And if you haven't read over on Substack, my post this week about how my gauge changed on this particular swatch. So this is a stitch pattern where you see on the right side row, you yarn over, slip one, knit one, and then pass the yarn over and the slip stitch over. So it's kind of an airy SK2P or SKP. And then on the right side, or the wrong side rows, you purl and yarn over to make up the stitch that you lost on the pattern row. Really easy, fun to knit. And so I was thinking about it after I'd blocked my swatch, and it was, as always, laying on the counter in the laundry room. And I came down for lunch, and I thought, I'll just check and see what the gauge is. So I usually block my swatches like about 7:30 in the morning. So, it had been sitting there for a while. And when I say block my swatch, it had been wet blocked. And then I always lay it out on the counter and steam it. So it had been steam blocked in the morning. And so I took my gauge, and then I was, thinking about it as I wended my way through the day and doing a little mental math, which I like to do. And so I had written down the gauge when I took it at lunch. And, then as always, the swatch got thrown aside for a few days. And when I came back, I thought, I should take the gauge again just to be sure. And it was significantly different. So if I had gotten 14 stitches to the inch, what is that? No, I'd gotten 11 and a half stitches to the inch. So not quite 3 stitches to the inch. And then when I took the gauge again, after it just, laying on my desk for a couple of days, it was back up to like 17 stitches. It may have been 14. Anyhow, it's all in my blog. So I thought about it for a while, like 24 hours, and I thought, so I'd had this happen once before with a knitter, and I had asked her to do a swatch, and we just needed to confirm gauge. She took it as that I was in a big hot hurry, and so she blocked it and then sent me the gauge. I wasn't really paying attention, but the gauge number was completely different. And Jamie and I had built this huge workbook based on it being this specific gauge. And so I went back to her the next day and I said, was that swatch really dry when you took the swatch? And she was like, oh no, it was damp. I'm like, what the hell? And she was not a careless person, so I'm not sure what motivated her to do that. But when she took it again, it was the same as what we'd been working with for months. So that all got me thinking about when we take our gauge. And I know knitters are always in a big hot hurry. And, so if you're taking your gauge without blocking it, you're not getting the gauge that is going to end up. But it turns out that if you, or hypothetically, if you take it too early, then it may not be right. So because I had been kind of working on the numbers in my head, I quickly figured out how many stitches I would have cast on at that early gauge. And it was like 172 stitches. I think I ended up thinking I would cast on 86 stitches each for the front and back. And then when I took the gauge and used the gauge after it had sat for a couple of days, it was like 208 stitches. So it turned out it was 8 inches difference. And, we wonder why we end up with problems. So being impatient may not be the best thing for your knitting. So I am doing an experiment. So I've started making identical swatches, and I'll go through my wet blocking and steam blocking process and then take the gauge like 3 hours after I've steam blocked it, and then 24 hours and then 48 hours, just so we know. So the yarn I used is this, which is called Mystic from Oink Pigments. It's superwash merino, and it does change quite a bit from, let's see what my numbers here say. So, I can actually tell you. So the original gauge that I wrote down was like 11 and a half stitches, and then it ended up being 14 stitches and 20 rows. Okay, so on my twisted rib swatches, the one I'm going to use, I did one at 6 on a size 6 US and one on a 7, and I decided I liked the 7 better. So I got 23 stitches to the inch versus 32 before I blocked it. So it relaxes quite a bit. I got almost 23 rows to 4 inches after it was blocked, and I had 20 rows. So again, relaxed quite a bit. Did not change much in terms of stitches on the size 6, because it's quite a bit tighter, but I need it to be soft. And the row gauge changed less as well. And then in seed stitch, poor bitch is like, why do you buy these tablets? I have notebooks full of these things. So seed stitch, which you always expect to kind of expand, went from 19 unblocked to 17 stitches, and from 34 rows unblocked to 35 blocked. So, it tends to shrink a little and get wider. So that was as expected. And I don't care what the gauge is, I just need it to be accurate. So that's why the experiment. Here's a little trim that I've made last weekend. It's 3 pieces. I just did the center I-cord, and then I picked up and joined the 2 outside. And it's to go with, I showed you guys the shawl last week. And who knows what I've done with it. So, was on my dress form, but I think I took that off. And then I have this really great antique button, which I can't find. So this is on hold. It's probably over here. Yeah. So this is the scarf, and depending upon which side you look at it from, you get a different fabric. It's just using knits and purls, and that's what it looks like. But so this is to just put a little tie around it with this fabulous button that I have, which I can't find. I have a feeling I know where it is. So we have Turn to Rain here in Seattle. This begonia that came up very late in August is now full of blooms. It's actually a single petal, so there's like 5 petals. They're long, but it's not the usual kind of dense, ruffly ones that I like. Let's see. I'm getting ready. This one goes better with my outfit. So next week, well, mine will be out in, I think, the 27th of October. So another little ebook. Yep. So this has a lot of short rows in it. And this mesh, see previous swatch. So this is in lace weight. And this is what I love about it. I put in short rows in the back so that it's even all the way around. And so there it is in that color. And then I have it in this color. So it's super fun to knit. Well, caveat, this twisted rib stitch at the bottom is kind of a pain in the ass. But because it's in the round, you do the same stitch every row. So you just, it's a 7-stitch repeat, and you just repeat it until you get sick of making it. That's usually my clue. It's time to move on. And it's also a gauge swatch for some garments that I'm releasing in January. So I will say something on Substack and all the other places next week. I've just been too busy this week to do much social media. And let's see, I've talked about this book called Worn, and the author's name is Sophie, Sofi, Thanhauser, Thanhauser. And let's see, Panoramic Social History. So this is a gift. She has a degree in creative writing. Is that it? Yeah, with books downstairs. This is why. So she's really blended both fashion, clothing, and sociology. So she did her graduate work, her doctorate work in Wyoming. And so there's a lot on Native American textiles and weaving and sheep growing in Wyoming, and the Navajo reservation primarily, as well as in other parts of the world. So I have just completely enjoyed this. I'm about 5 pages from the end. And so here it says, humane, engaging, generous with historical anecdote, and always able to reveal the telling detail. She shows how the cost of fashion far exceeds any retail price tag, and how the revival of venerable traditions might yet lead us to a sustainable future. But totally enjoyable. Warren put in a request at your library. And I just read it at lunch, and I'm almost done. Let's see. So the book, got my list here. Oh, this is funny. So, I talked about the ebook release, which part of the reason I've been so kind of head down this week is the gal who usually lays out our patterns for this has had computer issues, so I had to do the layout. And, it's not huge, but you throw that into an already busy schedule. And falling further behind. So here are some bucket hats that I did. They're probably 5 years old now. But I've pulled them out. I was quite taken with the fact that we changed color in the cast on to really give it an interesting edge. And then the colors, just so pop. It would look really cool to go in and put a third color in. Here's a slightly different stitch pattern in more of a coral color. And that's what I did at the top. I always put some little I-cord thingy at the top. And like this one, you could hang your hat by it. This one it's extra small, so I did a little tiny bow. So it's just a reverse of the other one they both have just that. But yeah, I'm always so fascinated at how the placement changes things. So I always get these calls for submissions, and like I have time to do something else, but oops, trying to move my camera here. So I sent them off, or sent a submission off, and as I was digging in the box, I also found these, and they're just fingerless mitts. This one's very simple, just 2 colors, and there's 1 by 1 rib down here, and then it's a 2 by 1, which is not bad to do in the round, but always a complete pain in the neck to do. And the same thing, but just with different color. I do not really believe in doing the seamless jog. And then this one, which is just a reverse of this. So I submitted these things to the magazine. We'll see if they're interested or not. Because they're just hanging around in my studio. Somebody should enjoy them. I haven't even worked the ends in on them. Jesus, I'm just a slob. Let's see. So I talked about that. Okay, so I have been threatening to release Napoli for couple 3 weeks. For those of you who don't know, this is Napoli. So this is Napoli as a head wrap, and like this. So this is superwash wool. It's very attractive. So for someone like me, I would wear this in the winter because I have a ton of hair and I get really hot. So if I have something covering all of my head. So I would wear this because the eyelet would make it comfortable for me. And then also in the pattern is just a version of the headband only. And really the only difference is that this has 2-stitch I-cord on both sides and an even increase decrease at the ends. And this one has a different end. So there's 2 different patterns in the pattern. And it's a pattern tailor pattern, so it's any size, any gauge. I actually just expanded it to. So I've got my. Oh, I keep putting it away, and then I can't find it. No. So I didn't. Oh, it's right here. So this one is out of wool, and I actually love it. It feels really cozy. Um, And I have this one, which is I used up every inch of yarn that I had. So it's a little short and it wouldn't work to cover your ears. But so this gauge is like 2 stitches to the inch. So um, I expanded, I'd had it just that you could do it down to 3 stitches to the end. And now I'm cold. Um, so I updated the table to make that so you can do the bigger sizes and a little bit bigger size yarn and expanded it so you could go down into lace weight should anybody feel compelled to make a lace weight headband. And so to talk to the pattern tailor, I have to make this output sheet. And in this column here is all of the things that are going to get popped into the pattern, and I have to calculate things or some of it's data that the user inputs and then I calculate things from there. So I have to create this output sheet, and Jesus, I swear I tried to break my brain this week. So I've got the headband that's part of the head wrap, and then I've got the headband only. So I had to color code things so I can keep track because you obviously don't have the eyelet piece on the headband only. And then I added in so you can get the pattern for a different yarn. So you could, from one pattern, you could get these 2, the head wrap and the solo headband, and this. So you can put in different yarns, and you can actually put in a different yarn for the drape part if you wanted. Ton of stuff to calculate and figure out. And that's like not the hard part for me. For me, the hard part is just keeping everything organized between like the headband only, the headband on the head wrap. And then I've got to do high-low decrease rates and all of this stuff. So I have to do it kind of in bites. And then my brain starts to fog up and I have to put it aside. But I made very good progress today. But earlier in the week, I have written an article on proportion and volume in your clothing for a magazine called A Needle Pulling Thread. So it has various hand stitching, quilting, and knitting are the focuses. So there may be I think there's some machine and hand quilting. I'm not sure there's sewing in terms of garments, but so I'm doing a series of articles for them on different aspects of fit, trying to keep it generalized so that it's suitable for anybody. So proportion and volume required figures to show how it changes and how you can trick the eye. So I'd done all the figures. I mean, it was no big deal. Because I could switch color and shift proportion and change volume, all of that on my program that I use for drawing. Trying to keep my, like the list of the figures I had. And there's like an A and B of each of them. There are 14 different figures. And what I was trying to show in each one, I finally had to make like an index or a table of contents to keep it straight. And then I had to go into each file and make sure that I had, given it the right figure name and the right color and volume. Oh God, I thought my brain would break. I don't know why stuff like that is so hard for me, but it just, and then I'm doing the layout for this ebook, and it wasn't that hard. Fortunately, there's only 3 patterns. I ended up with the same thing, like having to create a table of contents, and I'm just so not good at that, and I don't like to do it. Okay, so back to Napoli, and will I make it to my October 12th deadline? Well, I think I'm going to have to work this weekend, and it may be 5 p.m. on the 12th. Because I am really pushing it here. It's not that I haven't figured everything out. It's like extracting the information and putting it in the right place. And then I have to go upload my spreadsheets and the documents, which have fillable forms in them. And I have to check that I've put the right code in each fillable form, and then that it's extracted the right data, because a lot of times you have the option of getting something in either metric or US. So inches versus centimeters, meters versus yards, US needle size versus millimeters. And so at the very beginning, you say, I want this. And then I have to write the formula so that it says, if back in question 3, they said grams, then take the number from this column. If they said ounces, then take the number from that column. So all of that has to be double checked. And I much prefer just generating the information. The organizing is just killing me. I'm trying to, write the processes down as I do it to make it easier for myself. But so I sincerely hope I make it on Napoli, because I am so fucking sick of that pattern. Okay, I talked about my article, I talked about the book, and so I have here on my list, it says, why data? And had an interesting conversation last night, coming home from the Lucinda Williams concert with a couple of gals who I barely know. One I had just met that evening, and the other one, she and her husband have been over a couple times for dinner. She was a colleague of Mitch's. I really like her, but it was literally the first time we did anything with just us girls because Mitch was unable to join us. He was just in his long litany of health issues. Balance was bothering him yesterday. So we were talking. One of the gals asked me what I do, and um, and then she said, "So were you a numbers person?" It's like, oh God, no, barely passed out of high school math. And we are all, I think Sally's probably 5 years younger than me. And I assume they were both called Sally, one with an IE. The other Sally is around her age group, maybe a little bit younger. And so the IE Sally has her nieces living with her. They're twins. They're going to the University of Washington, which is probably, a couple miles from where she lives. And so for the past 3 years, this is the fourth year, the twins have lived with she and her husband during the academic year. And they've had either jobs or internships outside of Seattle every summer. And so they are computer science, math majors. And she said, they are not brilliant. They are incredibly diligent workers. They study all the time. But anyhow, we got talking about how I've had to overcome my math problems to do all this. And it's always kind of the logic and the rigorous order that things have to be done in. And of course, if you're writing a knitting pattern, it's the same. You can't just all of a sudden jump over to the neckline if you're working on the sleeve. But that's where I struggle in pattern writing too. And I do have the ability to kind of 3D image in my head. But the numbers still have to be done. And anyhow, I love doing the pattern tailor. I wish I had more time. But so that's why I'm always super conscious of the data that I'm getting. And I have already designed this pullover. This is just so I can do it at a different gauge. The other one is lace weight. And I figure not a lot of people are going to want to knit the lace weight. So, and I want to put it in the pattern tailor. So this is where I will get all of the numbers for my pullover. This is like an over pullover, so you would wear it over something. And then the seed stitch and the twisted rib go into the under pullover. And I think I talked last week about how I really wanted to use this with that because green. And I decided, it's very logical of me, that I could use this denim colored yarn because, of course, we use denim as a neutral. So that's what I'm going to do because I have the denim on my shelf and it's the same yarn as this, which I bought as a fundraiser over the summer. So anyhow, it all works for me. I'm going to get this knit up, which is making me very happy. And down to and including that I will figure out how much yarn you need from this swatch for the entire garment. So data is crucial for me. So I keep a lot of records on, gauge and numbers, all that sort of thing. How much ease is going into something. All of that gets put into workbooks. And then you may or may not be aware that I make these little calculators because they're fun. They're part of the pattern tailor, but I just do them for free. So I keep track of, I'll give you this example just because it happens to be laying here. And this was another thing I worked on this week. So this is a little shawl thing. And I guess it should go the other way. But so this will, I'm probably going to have some sort of pin to hold it like that. So this yarn came to me, or part of it came to me from the gal who designed the yarn and had it spun. And she lives in Southern California. And I kind of think like in the hills above, like Santa Monica, that part of Southern California. And so the yarn is from Ventura County, or the fiber is from Ventura County. It's called Ventura 2024. Okay, so she gave me a skein of it, and I have a pullover, a cardigan that has these 2 stitches in it. So I thought, oh, I'll just do something. It was done. The original sample was done in bison. Is it bison? Yeah, bison. Yeah, one of those. And so long ago, I can't remember, but it was this color. So I immediately thought of these, and I love these 2 stitch patterns. So the neckband has a lot of shape in it, which is done by putting GSRs between the round closed cables. And you can see this one here isn't as far away as these others. And then I think the same thing happens down here at the end. There's a buttonhole in here. So the yarn gal and the yarn shop that sells her yarn, which is in Coachella Valley, you may have heard of that, which is in the desert. So we're going to do a knit along and offer a kit. So this shawl took 200-gram skeins, and I think it sells for, well, we'll say 35. It's either 32 or 38, can't remember. And it's worsted, so there's like 190. Just guess. Can't recall. She looks around for her label. So you can get this size shawl out of 2 skeins, or you can make a smaller shawl piece, more of a neck wrap, out of 1. And so we're going to do a knit along. And then there's other yarn at the shop that is not this color, and maybe some slightly different blends. So this is alpaca and merino, Rambles. So the yarn shop owner we're planning this knit along. And I said, well, I figured out that it took me 22 and a half hours to make this. And so then usually what I do is, I kind of, based on how much yarn I use, I divide that over the hours. And, then if you were doing the 1 skein one, I could tell you how much less time it would take you to knit. But I said it took me 22 and a half hours, roughly. I did a lot of ripping out and reknitting, so it took me way longer than that. But to me, that's really interesting information to have. Now, not everybody is going to knit at the same pace that I do. But to me, it's as useful to know that this weighs 200 grams. And it took me 22 and a half hours to knit it, because then you may be looking at it and how long will it take you? Well, I don't know, but you can use me as a baseline. And, like this, I think it took me like 3.5 hours. Again, there was some ripping. But I didn't keep track. I think I was drinking. So anyhow, I keep data of this. I will time myself how long it takes to knit a couple of rows or rounds. And I will measure the yarn and figure out how much yarn I use for a row or rows in a project I'm knitting. And to me, it's just really interesting data. And I probably don't share as much as I should. So anyhow, I had our second meeting on this, and I have to do we all have tasks to do. So they do in-person events. So apparently there's a lot of, flock and fiber sort of things in their area of Southern California in the late fall. So, we have to do some marketing materials and that sort of thing. Did nothing. So this Napoli has just, and then I've got, now that I've got one nearby, my Langley shawl. Oh, here. I've had this wrapped around my skeleton. So it uses the slow stitch that I kind of invented, and more of this horizontal rib. And here's this button. So I'm having another sample knit of this, and I was kind of bad on this. I just made it up as I went. So my thought was I was not going to publish it, which of course then I loved it. So now I have to. So I had to kind of refigure the pattern because I hadn't kept notes or anything, which I'm not supposed to do. But I am, as I see reading my bio, a rebel with a cause. So I've been having to get parts of the pattern to the knitter, and I finally got her going. There's like 404 stitches per row, and she's got to get through 20 rows. So that'll give me till next week when I can get back to it. And I wrote the article and sorted out the figures, and I think I did pretty well this week. Mitch has been sick. And I'm getting ready for my cocktail. So I think I'll go and see if he's going to do a music hour. And I will make swatches while I'm drinking my martini. He's already chosen his dinner. And I know I made, so I'm on my second batch of yogurt for this week. And I made tomato sauce this morning. So I see I'm at 5:00, but I love to cook. And so like right now we're a little anxious about Mitch, and it is nice for me to have these things that I throw together. My tomato sauce is very simple. Yogurt is dead simple to make. And what else I made him a lemon cheesecake. Fucking delicious. And last week or the week before, I made an apple pie. So these are like stress reducers for me. And I've been doing roast chicken for him. And so I need to go down and slice some of that off for dinner tonight, and I will start a pot of soup, like no bone. Oh, I made chili too. No bone gets through my home without being boiled into stock. And I saw I have some chicken bones in the freezer, so I'll add those. And then I use this stock for cooking and trying to keep us eating as natural as possible and, yeah, keep myself calm. So have a lovely weekend, and I will get this video up tomorrow, and hopefully next week I'll get on top of everything, so I'm not quite so frantic. See you. Bye. Oh, Anne Marie, I see that you said you went to college in Ventura County, so you should clue me in on where it is. I just have a feeling it's like when we went up into the mountains or hills above Santa Monica that we were there. But I will have to do a little research. Oh, and I did some fun research to name these things, which I'd love to do. Okay, bye.